Thanks everybody for being here for the June meeting of the Big Hole Watershed Committee. We'll start as we always do with a round of introductions. I'm Pedro Marquez. I'm the executive director here. Committee. We'll head over to the right here.
I'm Tara Lynch. I'm the associate director of the Watershed Committee.
Nolan Saylor, Restoration Specialist, Watershed Committee.
And
For Director, Madeline Hanson, I'm a field technician. Cora Johnson, field tech.
Noah Dollar also.
Simon Shelter, also.
Howard Porter, Jackson.
Lance Robertson, Twin Bridges.
Lutz, Montana DNRC.
Danika Holmes, Montana DNRC.
What's my deep field office dealing? I'll let Eric come in there. All right.
Oh, pass the ball.
Eric Johnson, Treasurer.
That's Jones, Rafter, Ranching.
Yeah. No, I passed it over to Eric and go, and then we'll come back over.
See what you did?
Treasurer also Almonty. Then Rafferty Bill.
Stephen Allen, Hawaii. Taylor Stewart, Hawaii.
Matt Vincent with the Montana Mining Association.
Jack Calvert, for Limited. Steve Frizzy, engineer with Water Harvesting Halls. All right, Andy Folks, Montana Bureau of Mines and Geology. I'm Jim Keenan, Silver Gold Water. Roy Morris, George Grant. Mark Canopy, Director, Dubai.
And since I caused that chaos, Clayton Elliott, I'm the Conservation and Government Affairs Director for Montana Trout Limited.
Chaos creator.
Rancher was number.
Steve Levesque with you now, Cam Connery Sportsman.
Have Mike Rafferty out north of Dillon.
Mark Rafferty, Glen.
Jim Hagemark Glen.
Tom Bowler from Butte.
Andy Bowler viewed.
All right. Thank you all. Welcome, welcome. And we'll start with our climate and precip update reports. Luke, you've got the floor.
So with new faces, I'm Luke Lutz. I'm a hydrologist here with DNRC on the Big Hole. It's just a Streamflow and what's left of our snowpack update.
It's supposed to be bringing positivity and encouragement.
Smile away.
Smile. That's right. That's right. Yeah,
Maybe a rain dance?
Yeah.
that's right. That's right. So are you.
Go back there. For those who don't know, we have our stage website with DNRC and it has all of our real-time gauges here in the Big Hole. Our lowest one is Dewey. That still is the driving discharge. Still in grading development, but hopefully by next year we'll have discharge available for that. So that, like I said, that's found on our DNRC stage website. So our current snowpack for Big Hole Basin is 3%. Median basin meltout for this basin is July 1st. And there's some discrepancies between this model, which is the Snowtel model, and I'll get into the Montana Climate Office version of that as well. Go to the next one. There's pretty much only one gauge with snow, and it's our dark horse site. That's in the Beaverheads on the upper end of the basin on the west side. That's in that 2% right now. What's really the Barker Lake still has a skip of snow, but that's skewing the data pretty significantly. It was only 0.2 inches. So that gauge at the moment. And we melted out. We're almost at the melt out of Dark Horse, but it's about the same time as it was last year in 2025. This is from the Montana Climate Office. They use a SNODOS model, and they're saying that we're 66% of normal for this time of year. And most of that, I don't think this is quite up to date, honestly. I think most of that snow is well about 9,200 feet at this point, if there is any. And most of it is in Beaverheads on the southwest side of the watershed. The next one here. Current precipitation to date, we're at 93% of normal. Most of the stations have been doing pretty well throughout the year, other than Basin. Creek. So a little bit different. I'm going to talk about precip because June is supposed to be our month of precip for the basin, where we averaged 2.12 inches of rain from 1991 to 2020 average is 2.12 inches. So I'll go into what we got last year around this time. Let me go to the next slide here. And this isn't based out of wisdom. 2025, we had 9 rain days, totaling just over an inch, so about half of our median of 2 inches in June. By this time last year, we had 0.3 of an inch on the 17th of June. The wisdom gauge is pretty good because it's usually there's a lot of irrigation withdrawals above that gauge, so it's generally lower and dewatered. But you can also see it's a lot of flood irrigation surrounding that gauge, so when we have rain events, the river's really responsive. And these little squares here are the duration of these rain events in 2025. And you can see how responsive that gauge has been compared to last year. If you go to the next slide here, this is this year. So we had that rainstorm at the end of May this year, and if we have got any precip this month, it's been trace, it hasn't been a measurable amount. So currently we're at almost 1/10 of an inch throughout the month so far in June. So kind of a stark difference where we're supposed to be averaging 2 inches of rain in a month. Last year we observed half of that. Now we're really so.
But some of that rain fell in other parts of the watershed.
It did, yeah.
Heavier, right?
That is true. Now this is with the town of Wisdom, so it's a higher elevation surrounding the basin. This is the basin-wide average temperature based off of all those snow-tell sites. Recently we are departing higher than normal. This last week was a bit cooler. I expect a little snow that we do have up to start coming down throughout the system during this warm spell that we're getting. So let's go to the next slide here. All right, section 1. Wisdom this morning was 24 CFS. The drought plan was at 60 CFS. We are currently either landowners through sections A and C are currently at their maximum diversionary rates based off their site plans, or are going to be transitioning by the end of this week to be at those max diversionary rates. And then this is based off of the big order DMP plan. 60 CFS is prepare for conservation, 40 is conservation, and 20 is the Montana FWP river closure based off of flow, swamp temperatures. And I'll have these listed for each gauge as we go through this. So this is section 1.
So you're expecting a closure there pretty quick, pretty soon?
Yeah, unless some guys are going to be turning off earlier this year to hay, but I can't get the water to the gauge due to some non-enrolled ditches. Say no more. Section 2, this is Dewey. I had a malfunction at this gauge. I hopefully fixed it today, fixed the bubbler. So we did not have discharge from the 14th to this morning. I measured 660 today. So it's not 769. Our goal for the spring until June 30th is 450 CFS. That's a CCA target goal. And then based off the drought management plans, 170, 140, and 100 for river closure. Go to section 3.
Where are we at today?
660. This is the USGS gauge at Maiden Rock. We were at just over 1,000 CFS. And then our closures at 150. And our prepare for conservation is at 250. And that will be the same through section 4 here. Where Melrose is currently sitting at 995 CFS. And then Glen is sitting at 980 CFS as of this morning. I forgot to mention this yellow line right here is the same time last year flows for 2025. Sorry, I forgot to mention it. So yeah, section 5. This is USGS gauge at Twin Bridges. We're at 740 CFS as of this morning. I think I got these numbers. This should be 100, right?
That's right.
You think that's right?
I think that's right. I think your other one was off. Yeah, I don't think there's 100 trigger error. Oh, I think it's 104. Oh, 15. Why this is not locked into my brain, I don't know. Another check. It's okay. Yeah, you're probably right.
Alright. So that's current stream flows, and we'll get into our climate forecast. This is the 2-week temperature and precipitation outlook from NOAA. Above average temperature, and they are saying above average precip, but obviously that hasn't happened. And then our 1-month outlook is above average temperatures and equal chances of either above or below precipitation. El Nino conditions are present and they're expected to strengthen throughout this winter. There's an 83% chance of El Nino, a 20% chance of a strong El Nino, and a 13% chance of a very strong El Nino at the moment.
Your numbers were right.
They are right.
Yeah.
You can go to the next slide. U.S. seasonal drought outlook. This is also from NOAA. The biggest difference from the last time I showed this is there's actually been some drought removal up by Great Falls and up on the High Line there. And then we are seeing development on the western side of the state here, west of the Continental Divide. I'll give the next one. U.S. Drought Monitor, same thing. Like I said, this Great Falls and High Line area was D3. Now it's mainly D2 and D1. And then D3 drought conditions have actually expanded across the southern side of Beaver County. Is the last update.
How do they measure that?
It's a model, and it has a bunch of variables such as soil moisture, precipitation, temperature, and
I'll talk about some of
Yeah.
this in my presentation later.
I think that should be. Any questions, comments, concerns? Do your rain dance?
No, don't do that. Yeah, let me share mine. Share. First question I will start with, where in the big hole is this? This one should be fairly easy. Yeah, exactly. Hold on, non-board members. Go ahead, Roy. Yeah, so Sugarloaf in the corner there. So this is the headwater of anyone? Creek name? Anyone? California Creek. All right. Maybe Nolan will talk about what is. Oh, you already did last week, or you
I
did?
did last week. Yeah,
Okay.
I'm not gonna talk.
Yeah, this is there. I do have a great. I couldn't find it in time for this, but I do have a great photo from the early 1900s of the folks building this part of the flume. This is where the flume actually traversed this basin, across this basin for them to float the logs out of Mount Hagen. So I have a shot of the guys hand digging this thing in the late 1800s from this very spot. It's pretty neat. I'll bring that in for a comparison. It's the restoration we did just finished over there. Okay. California Creek, sure it is. Okay, I will go quick because I want to make sure there's time for our speakers. Obviously, flows are dropping fast. I think everyone that irrigates, manages water, get ready. Unless something massive happens in the skies and comes down, it's going to be a tough year, and it's going to start looking tough from here on out. So do everything you can. Share with your neighbors. Let's help get as much conservation and participation as we can this year. It's the only way we can kind of make through and make it through to the next year and then hope things improve, right? In the meantime, we'll keep doing all of the other proactive measures that we can to try to increase water supply, but we can't make rain yet. Let's see. Real quick, just a quick picture. I think Nolan might touch on this, but this is a shot of at the Elkhorn mine. We were wanting a little bit more precision on the data about the groundwater seeps coming out of that place. I had a chance to go up with Pioneer Technical and Chris Gammons from Montana Tech and a couple of his students. He has 2 students now dedicated to sampling groundwater levels and stream flows and water samples from these seep areas all summer, which is great. We don't have to go do that. we did get money from the DEQ for the lab samples coming out of this site. The pH out of this little spot was a whopping 3.6. If anyone knows about pH, that's slightly less acidic than orange juice. You don't want to drink that. That's like terrible. And this is coming out right below the big waste rock dump. One of the things we're doing on that project that is going to go in the ground, I think next week, we're going to be digging some deeper groundwater wells as a final design precaution. So right now we have a sense of the groundwater. It's pretty clear that the precip snow rain is picking up acid mine soil, and that's what we're getting in the creek. But we want to make sure there's no deeper groundwater source of contamination that may be coming up to the surface that we're not aware of. So before we finalize the designs, we're going to punch in some deeper groundwater wells and start taking some samples of that just to make sure. I suspect we're not going to pick up anything, but it's one of those precautionary. You don't want to do $2 million of remedy and then find out that there was this other source that you didn't know about, right? So that's what's going on there. And we're just adding some precision to those measurements. And now we've got students and a hydrology professor doing it for us in partnership. So that's great. As far as on the funding side, some of this will be redundant. So Nolan will cover some of these things, but WP has this new program. It's a pre-existing program, wildlife habitat improvement program. It was previously really tailored to just buying chemicals, and it wouldn't pay for any staff time or coordination or anything. It was literally just buying chemicals for weed spraying. Now there's legislation passed in the last session, opened that program up to a broader range of projects, including staff time and admin, which works for us because we don't work for free. So we're putting in for 3 projects just to kind of test the waters of this program. I expect it's going to be a very competitive round. I think everyone and their grandmother is putting in a grant for this program from what I've heard, but we're throwing in for a lot of things. So that means the camper shirts, sorry, I think I botched his last name. The last remaining funds we need for that Spring Creek spawning channel project. I'm putting in for improvements to the company ditch. We're trying to make the claim that's a habitat improvement because conservation will be happening if you can turn your head gates on and off more easily. And then high meadow storage and maintenance. When we went up, Nolan and I and our restoration techs went up to our east fork of Divide Creek project and saw what was very predictable, that a BDA project, beaver mimicry project installed 7 years ago has now run its lifespan, and the water has done what it does, and it's found the low spot, and it's sort of, our structures are not holding the water that they used to. So I'm going to put in a pot of money to ask for maintenance money on these types of high alpine projects. And to me, it's just if anything else, it's just a marker to our funding agencies that they better get used to the idea of having maintenance projects on these high meadow restorations. And it's cheap, but I think we need to get into the habit of having this money to iterate and continue to go back to places. We're not going to solve all our problems by just throwing one grant at a problem, throwing the money at it, and then walking away forever. We'll see how that goes, but that's if we don't get this money, it's not the end of the world, but I do want to make a point for those folks that are reading this.
Mayor, would the camper shore project be fully funded if you got this grant?
Yes, sir. Yes, it would, and we'd be rocking and rolling this fall. We'd get it done this fall.
So this is like $100,000 request.
It is exactly $100,000 request. Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, this is someone's paying attention to emails. Rest of you governing board members. Some of you maybe talk to them about getting an email. So with the Forest Service agreements, it's a flavor of the day. We're developing, the governing board reviewed what we were planning. That partner agreement is moving forward. The forest is explaining, and I don't ask too many questions, but for some internal reasons, putting everything that they want to do in one agreement isn't feasible. So there may be 2, possibly 3 separate agreements for all of the things that they want us to execute for them. I have no problem with that. It's just 3 signatures instead of 1. But good amount of money, and there's lots of positive talk about what's coming in the future, and folks are liking the idea of parking the money with us, getting the work done much faster than they can get it done. And let's hope that continues into the future. It helps us plan for the future and be able to bring on support. It's a big deal. That's pretty exciting. I didn't put in here, looking forward to a NOFO coming out, notice of funding opportunity from the BLM. Haven't seen it yet. Okay, but similar idea, right? Where they have resource needs, we have capacity to get projects on the ground faster, and so we'll be proposing that and got some good ideas. And it'll be riparian focused, right? Yeah, so we got some good ideas on those lines. I had a good visit with Brooks, driving around some of their work and some of their areas between Johnston Creek and Jerry Creek in that range. They've got a big forestry project going on there. And then one other thing that's come to my attention, I'm just now getting some details of this, so it's a little fuzzy, but I just will let you all know. You all know the River Foundation dissolved 2 years ago, maybe, and there's been some questions around that dissolution. Apparently, the dissolution of that organization, they would have had to give all assets had to go to one of two trout nonprofits in Montana, and apparently there was some assets around with that organization. Where those assets went and what is going on with Georgia Grant's legacy is currently a question. I think a lot of folks would take that pretty seriously. I don't have enough detail to say more than that, but it is a thing. So ask your neighbors, ask your friends, what's going on with Georgia Grant's money. Okay, and then on the partnership front, the beaver translocation proposal passed the Fish and Wildlife Commission, finally. So what that did, FWP created an environmental assessment that creates a translocation program. What the commission did was approve 3 translocation sites, one of them being Moose Creek up here in the Highlands. So that will likely be the first place where we have a approved area to take a problem beaver and go put them up there where they can be helpful. We've got sites, Nolan's got sites identified, prepped. We've got a big volunteer day I think you'll talk about.
Partial prep, but we got explosives. We'll get it done.
We got explosives. We've blown the beaver dams up to make room for a new one. You put up
a beaver dam.
We're doing the whole,
Prepping.
we're prepping. We're creating a nice home for the transplanted beaver. Landowners that have regular interfaces and issues with beavers, I suspect that we're going to start having some fights about who gets their problem beavers taken off their properties and put up in the headwaters. So sharpen your elbows and start getting in line. I don't know quite yet what the process is going to be, but feel free to let us know and we will let the right people know. Do you have any idea how this is going to work? Okay. Anyway, if you have beaver that you're constantly fighting, there is now a non-lethal way to get them off of your property and put them somewhere where they can go to work for free.
It's got to be the same watershed.
Just within the Big Hole. We can move them within the Big Hole. Anywhere in the Big Hole, they can go up to Moose Creek.
So what are you doing? They're going to go in and build some dam sites so they have habitat when they arrive.
Yeah, so there's areas with clear sign of historic dams that have blown out. And so some of those holes, one of those, what were the previously inundated lakes, we've blown those up to create a larger, deeper hole and to liberate mud so that the beaver have a bunch of mud to do their spackling with. That's what they do.
And when they maintained it, when they were there, they would maintain these deeper holes in this high elevation.
That's right.
Meadow areas. But now that they've been gone, all their old ponds have sedimented in. So there's just really narrow, really thin areas of water. So it freezes right now. So if we were going to reintroduce beavers up there right now, because they've been gone so long, they would freeze that.
So you're deepening them on.
Yeah. So we're getting
just at the reintroduction sites, they'll go over the summer, they'll make their own ponds, deepen their own ponds, build their own dams.
And you got a little community there to support.
Oh, huge. Yeah, massive.
We're enhancing it, but it's a great place just to start.
Yeah. And the translocation program set out, it's a pretty rigorous you have to meet a bunch of pretty rigorous thresholds to have a place ready for beaver. FWP folks are on this. You can't just drop them off anywhere. They'll walk away. If the pool isn't the right size and if there isn't food, they'll leave, right? So those conditions have to be right.
Look at support, how you can bring in.
That area,
Yeah.
It's a big area.
it's
So,
huge. I mean,
3 populations off the bat, but there's gonna be, that's just our initial goal.
oh, is that what it's going to be? It's three separate
3 separate sites.
separate sites, so three,
Family,
Yeah.
family group at each site.
and then you move a whole family unit.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
then as we move and as we continue on with this program, the watershed itself, Moose Creek, is huge. It's actually Tori Ritter, who's the he's the moose whisperer, came up and looked at it. He didn't know. He's like, I didn't know there was a place like this in Montana. This is great.
Yeah.
Beaver habitat. This is the
Yeah.
place.
Yeah. And there's a canyon kind of in the Humbug Spire that separates the bottom. So there's beaver downstream. They just, I think, after extirpation, just never made it back up through the canyon into this huge, expansive sort of high alpine. So that's happening. That was a big push. Surprising amount of politics around that. Not necessarily. Related to the beaver, BeaverCon, here we come. The Broadreach Foundation has supported us on all things beaver related restoration, including our technicians that are cruising all our meadows looking for the future beaver restoration spots. I'll be presenting with Laura Zemer, the attorney that helped us get the Army Corps of Engineers permit change around low-tech process-based restoration. So we're going to just tell the story from the field side and from the legal side, how we managed to unlock that roadblock to doing beaver-related restoration and tell that story. So that's in, where are we going?
September, Minneapolis.
September in Minneapolis is where we'll be. Tana and I are going, and we're going to have a good time. Beaver people. It'll be a wild conference. It'll be fun to go from yesterday. Oh, there it is. Yeah. The next thing, I'll come back to this. Yesterday, I was at Montana Farm Bureau's annual meeting. We showed our film in a 9:30 session, 9:30 in the morning, watching movies at a conference. I really liked that. That was awesome. And then we did a Q&A, J.M. Peck and I, and it was great. It was really wonderful to see all the questions from ranchers from all over the state on just how we do what we do. And everyone was, how do we do that? How do we start? How do we? And for those of us that have come into this committee and this work and missed the sort of first 20 years, that was the hard stuff. And that's a little bit of the message I had to tell folks. If you don't have the social infrastructure, which is what this is, that's the hard part. And that's going to take some time and some years of consistent meeting, right? But it was encouraging to see all the interest in what we're doing. I think what we're doing should be replicated all over the place. This is the message I got from that. The governing board wrote a letter of support to the Nature Conservancy. They are going to do some tests of using virtual fence in sagebrush country to manage grazing in sagebrush and sagegrass habitat. So some experimental kind of short duration, high intensity grazing in sagebrush to see what the impacts of that are. And I think, thanks, governing board members had some really great comments, and I made sure to put those in the letter, urging some of the things that they talked about, proximity to weeds and not do this too close to known weed patches for invasions and things like that. Yeah, so that was good. Good conversations, good support for that group. And then lastly, we supported the Wise River Club. This is a sort of a mini project. We helped them permit 2 of the things that they want to do there on their ground to expand their recreation amenities there. We had to take Smart Creek and put it just 3 feet down slope, but out of their property into a natural sort of spring-fed property where beaver can take over the creek and do their thing. So we finished that in just a half day. We just crushed it. Yeah, me and these 4. It was a good day. And then it's fun. We did a lot of work by hand, and then we had an excavator just come out and give us some big loads of dirt and finish the job. It was awesome. So thank you all for that. And that is all I have. Anyone have any questions for me? That's it. No? Great. Great. Okay, steering committee is next. We didn't met, so anybody have, Steve, you want to take?
No meetings since the last regular monthly meeting, so no update.
Okay, we'll have a quarter meeting here end of this month, early next month, Q2. We'll keep you posted next month. Alrighty. Who's next?
Alright.
Tana, and then I stop sharing.
Yeah.
Stop sharing.
All right. Communication. You want
I will sort this.
to? So, yeah, really excited. Well, let me get ahead of myself here. Slow down. Okay, communication. So our upcoming monthly meeting. So of course tonight we're hearing about reduced or ceased water use reporting from Danika Holmes. And then next month we don't meet, so enjoy your summer. Hopefully we'll get some more moisture. And then in August we will have the Restoring the Headwaters film. We'll finally be showing that here. And then we'll have an update from our watershed field technicians on their summer doing high alpine meadow rapid assessment work. That'll be great to hear from them. And in September, we'll hear about grizzlies and range riding from our range rider Chet and then Brad Bayless with FWP. In October will be invasive weeds, and then in November we'll get an update on the Wisdom Managed Aquifer Recharge project by the Bureau of Mines. All right, and then if you haven't seen it yet, we do have a store on our website now where we have branded BHWC gear, we have sweatshirts, water bottles, mugs, all kinds of stuff. And proceeds support the conservation fund. And if there's anything on there if there's anything not on there that you would like to see on there, you can let us know and we'll see if we can get that. All right, this is what I was excited about and I wanted to jump right into. We have hired a communications coordinator. She's on Zoom. She was going to join us tonight, but she came down with a bit of a cold. Her name is Kim Wheatley. She lives in Dillon. And we had over 15 applicants. We had several interviews. It was a tough decision, but we were very confident in our decision, and we think that she's going to be a great addition to our team. And then just a small note, our spring newsletter will be coming out very soon. That's all I've got for communications. And then a quick update on wildlife. Our carcass removal and composting program has been going on. We pick up livestock carcasses from Big Hole and Grasshopper Valley ranches free of charge and bring them to our compost site outside of Wisdom, where we use wood chips and water to break them down into basically dirt and bones. And we do this to remove attractants to carnivores from ranches. And so this is Eric Lewis. We hired him this year. He lives in Melrose. He's our conflict direction coordinator. He's been doing a great job for us. We rented a dump trailer from Western States Cat this year. We picked up over 30 carcasses, which is a little low, but hopefully that's just because the weather's been kind of decent. So yeah, that's going well. We're winding down the season on that now, so we'll be returning the dump truck here, or the dump trailer at the end of the month. Next. And then our Range Rider program usually starts in July, but this summer we started it on June 1st. Our Range Rider Chet Robertson monitors U.S. Forest Service grazing allotments in the upper Big Hole, looking for sick and injured livestock and grizzly bear and wolf activity and presence. And then he communicates closely with the producers in that area to let them know what's going on. And he has 2 new allotments this summer, and it's been a slow start to the year. There's a lot of down timber, so he's been working through that. But he does think it's valuable to be out before the cows get turned out to get the lay of the land. And then he did attend a Range Rider workshop in Grand Junction, Colorado in April for the Western Landowners Alliance. And he was both a student and a little bit of a teacher down there. And then he's invited to another one of those workshops in August. So yeah, sharing the knowledge, and he's excited to be out on the range again. So we'll see how summer goes. That's it. Any questions? Yep. All right. Let's hear from Nolan.
All right. Nolan has not been busy at all.
Yeah.
Trying to find enough for this guy.
I love this time of year though. You really get, I'm a builder. I like making things. And this time of year I get to make a lot of stuff. Actually, that and our partners, go ahead, next slide. Yeah, like out in the field, the contractors are really going. So it's all about communication between landowners and the partners and our contractors. So with Campersure, Pedro talks a little bit about this. So we got 143 approximately in hand. Our target is 365, so we're a little under half, but there's some wiggle room with that. So we're definitely getting there. We just secured, it was, I said 85, but I think it was 82,000 with future fisheries. And we've got, like Pedro talked about, a few more grant opportunities. We're getting it done with that one. Smith's Age, we're just waiting on that. It's October, that's going to be the same. Smith's Age is over there on the west side of the watershed. Go ahead and hit the next one. So Mount Hagen area. So we got California Gulch, the mechanized component done. I'll show you a couple slides. I've shown you a lot of that before. I don't think I talked last time about Cabot Gulch, did I? I don't remember. I don't think that was happening right at the same time. So Pedro and I were over there and we decided there was a storm that happened in the last year or two, and a lot of the restoration projects that had been done in the past weren't working anymore. And
They worked 100%.
anymore. They did. Okay. That's fair. That is very fair. But they had their lifespan had there was berms that was catching sediment that were that now full, and that sediment was transporting down into the creek. So we needed to create a new all these restoration strategies that we have, a lot of them just take maintenance before all the biology can catch up, before we get all the plant life to hold the soil in place. So we just weren't there yet. We saw it, so we came back in to address. It was a lot better than the first time they got there. Go ahead and go to the next slide. We'll take a look at it. Some of the images. So you can see here, this is after the work's done, so it looks a lot better than when we got there. This incision in the channel, this little channel here, you can see a lot of sediment transport through it. So this is a really large hand-built structure we did. There's hemp bells in here, and then some conifers that are woven in there, like we do with willows with BDAs, but they're huge 18-foot or 12-foot pine. Really robust structures. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I'll show you the mechanized component. He's using these hemp bells at Indie Hemp from Fort Benton. We're working with this company that's making food and clothing, and this is the products that they produce, the waste product, but they're trying to find an outlet for. And it's great so far for restoration. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. It's absorbent, it's natural, so there's no plastics or metal after we install it, except for those few metal bands. And it really absorbs moisture and helps the vegetation response a lot quicker. And we were using them in BDAs as well, beaver dam analogs. And it's really helping the sedge mats stay put so they don't get flushed out of the system. Oh, I can't tell you how excited I am about this product. I'm so excited. Actually, go to the next slide. I'll tell you how excited I am.
There's 2 slides.
Oh, there's more slides. Oh, yeah, this is not in my narrative. But here's another demonstration. Look at that sedge, those big sedge, or excuse me, sedge, hemp bales placed right there on the spillway to prevent undercutting. And these are just heavy logs with the hemp flakes put in between. So this is going to capture a lot of sediment. You can see the greenery already around there. This thing is really going to do its job. I'm expecting a pretty quick capture of sediment and highly vegetation response with all that hemp in there to work as a battery for moisture. Go ahead and go to the next slide.
How many bales is that?
That one's 6 across.
Oh, okay.
There's
Yeah.
no-
3 on the bottom.
Is it only 3?
That looks like, right? 3 end to end?
Yeah, maybe.
They're the long way.
6. I'm really good with numbers. Okay, go to the next slide.
They're like 400.
They're cute.
They're 400 pounds each.
Yeah. Oh, I guess nice. Yeah, the other slide's coming. And then we're doing handwork mostly right now. Yeah, Marika's there. Who you working with, Marika?
MCC.
MCC.
That's Dan.
Yeah, what are you doing?
We're building some BDAs, or we're not building them, we're rebuilding them.
There you go. How did the hemp work in it?
Really good. Yeah, it's been working really well. Yeah.
Good. Yeah, I thought the same. So really excited about its ability to be durable. A lot of times these structures only last 2 years is 2 to 3 years is a long time for a beaver dam analog. And I'm trying to push that out to 4 or 5 years before give the chance for the vegetation willows to pop in here and start capturing sediment on their own. We're really trying to increase sinuosity in this stream, how we're pushing the stream on one side of this channel, and on the next BDA upstream, get it go to the other. So we're just getting it more sinuous, get it to dance. Okay. All streams should dance, right?
That's what that is.
Okay, Elkhorn Mine, we're still in the design and data collection. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Not too much new, and Pedro already talked about it, so I'm not going to talk any more about that. Go ahead and go to the next slide.
We did figure out how to get flow from a groundwater seep. We worked with the hydro professor. That was because the water just dribbles out of the ground in a location. It's hard to measure that flow, but we wanted to, and Chris Gammons helped us figure out how to do a little diversion, a little dam
Do you
with
do
some
a
pipes.
collection box or something like that?
Just a little dam, but then with some pipes through it, and we got most of it, and just filling a bucket and timing it. It was really rudimentary, but it helps. It's going to help us figure out the loading of those seeps for metals.
Cool. Cool.
That was fun.
Yeah, that's fun. All right, next one. Oh, we're at Lazy Yes. Sorry. You already did. Yep. Lazy Yes. It's active. Good enough. Now let's change. And this is right outside, just west of Wise River. And I've talked about this project. We're really into it now. Willow trenches are completed with the machines and thank goodness, a little later this spring than we wanted, but they're doing fine. So weed barrier for we're going to do some plantings of aspen and cottonwoods and put wheat barrier out to kill grasses before we do the plantings. And we got 6 out of 7 of those completed. Fencing, the contractor I met with on Monday, and he's coming next week with his equipment. We're getting that done. Planting's going to happen next spring, 2027, and in August I'm going to give an in-depth presentation. Also this fall, we put off the regrading because by the contractor got out, it was right during heavy flow, and the contractor advised, hey, this is heavy flow, we should wait. And I said, we should. You guys know what you're doing. So we're going to wait till fall to do that. Okay, go ahead and go to the next slide. Is there any questions about any of the projects I've kind of got it? Any questions? Cool. We'll keep going. Here's just an example of what the weed barrier looks like when it's pinned down. We're going to put an wildlife exposure around it. That'll be 8 foot tall with netting around it, wire netting to keep out elk. Because there's so much elk on this property, they're just another thing that impacts the vegetation. Okay, and you can see the willow trenches and all those willow sticks there. So I've shown that before. Go ahead and go to the next slide. Okay, here we go. McCartney. So this is Burma Road, proof of concept. I told you guys last meeting that I failed and didn't get the grant, the DEQ 319 grant, and we all cried for me. But we're back on the horse now. And what we're going to do is proof of concept on this. We're waiting for the state land off of Burma Road. They're working through the environmental assessment for us to work on their place. Paulson's Ranch. I love it. I told you I guys love this hemp product. Luckily, Eric has been generous enough for us to store 300 bales at his place. So we got a lot of material. And I'll talk about that actually, local producer utilization. If you guys have a restoration project on your land and you want some of this material, come talk. Okay? That'll be great. All right. And then Carl said we're going to do some restoration work on your property. I just wanted to let you know because that's going to be cool. It's going to be a really good project. All right. So let's go to the next slide.
I just want to point out that Nolan did not fail. They didn't receive our proposal because of a glitch in their system. So that was not his fault.
No, but that's no, it's got multiple failures. It's okay. It's okay. So 300 of these suckers, we're ready to go, you guys. So think about if you have dryland gullies or a sediment transportation issue, a lack of vegetation issue, give me a call. That's my number. Talk to Pedro. Look at the webpage. It's around. All right. Broader habitat, Eastern Pioneers. We talked about last time that there was a bunch of contracts out. Nobody responded for requests for bids on that. So we're going to get other projects, bundle them together in a bigger project.
On the conifer one.
On the
specifically.
conifer
Yeah.
one, yeah. And then we're going to send that out again.
Yeah.
And I'm going to talk to our contractors, see what's going on, why they didn't put a bid out. So we're going to drum up some business.
We just got another, with the forest, got another aspen units, hundreds of acres of aspen units up the Wise River.
A
at
lot,
Salt Creek.
a lot of these
Right.
contractors, they need scale to make it worth it.
That's right.
And we had 2 20-acre plots, and they're like, nobody wants to bid on that. It's like, that's not paying for my gas for my crew to come out. So once we bundle it, when we get a lot, hundreds of acres, we'll get some bids. All right, next slide. And then Brown's Tributary, that's the other thing that we're going to do this summer. That's coming up July 14th. In there, there's some garbage we're going to pick up. There's we need to install a log rundown, a couple log rundowns. There's just some tidying up mostly to do, some weed spraying in there, just some touch up with MCC. Go ahead and go to the next slide. All right, Apple Moose Creek. So low-tech process-based restoration. That's beaver reintroduction. We touched on that before. Go ahead and go to the next slide. I do want to highlight this because it's so freaking cool. Permits are secured to relocate beaver. Can I get an amen or Yahoo or something? Volunteer Day. Man, this is so cool. This is where we're working to connect our community, especially our youth with the landscape. That's our goal on Volunteer Day. I really don't care if we don't get anything done. If I get kids out there catching frogs and adults out there understanding about beaver, I'm happy. Everybody's happy. We're providing lunch, tools. It's going to be a great day. The goal with this is we are gonna install some beaver deceiver, which are I talked about last month. Those hog panels around the culverts. And we're preactively trying to resolve conflict before they happen. That's part of living with beaver is you got to prepare the sites that they're going to want to be when you can. And that'll reduce some conflict, right? Potentially we might have a film crew from PBS come out. Does anybody know about the American Land, that show, PBS? I haven't heard of it either, but they're going to come out and they're going to do some filming, and hopefully I'm going to have an 8 to 12-year-old kid who's going to work on these and be on the film, be that film star. I'll love that. So that's what we're hoping for. Okay, next slide.
7-year-old?
I know.
7 no,
Her kids.
too young. Too young. And this is why we do what we do, right? This is why we do it. This is a volunteer day. The way you sign up, just go to sagestep.org. So you can do it right now. Ignore whoever's talking next and just go ahead and log in and sign up. Okay. Thank you guys. I think that's it. Do I have any more slides?
That's it?
That's it?
That's all you did around here?
That's it. Oh, yeah. What? I didn't forget you. I did forget you. I'm sorry. Okay. So this is the last thing that they're still actively collecting data. You guys are just walking. What's your most miles in a day so far?
15.
What? 15? Did you walk the next day?
Yes.
Yeah. They are doing it. They are going, and these are high altitude meadows. They're just going up and down every day. So they're young and they're ornery, and I love them. Let's go to the next slide.
They know how to find sheds.
They do know how to find sheds, but that's because they pick up garbage. It's like a karma thing. When I'm outside, I don't find anything. And I don't know what that's saying about my content. But I want to show you guys, look at this side channel. It's not, it's just the wetland that's been engaged as the beaver complex has come on. Look at how much water is flowing over these dryland grasses. So this is something that they just saw. This is a habitat that's really working. We don't need to do any restoration or water storage up here. It was just happening while we were there. It was a beautiful thing. This is just people from Texas just amazed how is this June? I don't understand how this is June. Actually, it was May 29th, right? So yeah, that was a fun photo. All right, any questions for me? Or for my text? They're not my techs, our techs. Yeah. All right, thank you.
That's right. That's Nolan. That's right. That's flat. Yeah. Oh, I got it. I got some flaps there. Are we at additional
Yes.
business? All right. And now we're gonna get some updates now on Matt, Vincent, and Ben Rafferty. We had a good conversation and they're engaged with 2 mining projects that are happening in the watershed. And this is the perfect place for us to learn more about what it is that they're doing. So they're gonna come talk to us about those 2 projects and let's give them all our full attention.
It's just, I got these across the Missouri, got a couple drink folks here, appreciate the hospitality. Ben Rafferty, I work with Matt at the Mining Association, Roughdale, and also support 2 companies that are going to present a little bit of information here between mining to Genton, Montana for. So just appreciate the hospitality, good opportunity, and looking forward to us to be able to work within this region, both for all the multiple uses represented in this room, and certainly mining being one of them, but have a lot of respect for the watershed and everything that is done here and everybody's involved. So with that, I'm going to turn over and let Matt, the professional speak. So thank you.
I don't know about professional. Matt Vincent here. I won't tell you all about my background with the watershed here, but know that I've lived most of my life in Butte with a short hiatus down in Melrose for a couple of years. Thanks for having us, and I might have you switch to the next slide here. So just a real brief over here. Obviously, I think everybody knows about Montana's history with mining. It's our moniker, Treasure State, our mottos, gold and silver. Part of our heritage with a legacy, obviously. I think is really probably fitting that there was some good pictures and discussion on the Elkhorn mine, because that's a lot of what the legacy is that folks associate mining in Montana with. And the most important legacy to how we do things today is that it's informed us the lessons we have learned and the issues that we're still dealing with. But I'm here to tell you that modern mining is nothing like the legacy that we still deal with in places like Elkhorn. In fact, all of that sampling and the groundwater and whatnot, those things are done before we ever turn the first scoop of dirt. So you understand what the baseline is for the surface water, the groundwater, the interactions between the two, what sort of species, plants, animals, birds are all within the area that you want to propose to go out and do some development on, so you know how to avoid the sort of things that we're now still dealing with at some of those historic places. And that's just the early stages, the regulatory stages of what you have to do once you get into the development process are above and beyond any other jurisdiction you're going to find, even in the United States. Montana has a few unique laws on our books because, again, of the lessons that we've learned from our legacy here that other states don't even have, whether that's our bonding laws, our Hard Rock Mining Impact Act, which requires any project that anticipates having 75 or more employees to actually meet with the stakeholders and the local governments in a county so that they can come up with a plan for how they pay their taxes forward before they even start the project, because there's a lapse between when a mine starts and producing and paying their taxes to a county. And so if you're going to come into a small community, which where these deposits are that we have out there, they kind of happen to occur in places where there's not a lot of population centers. And so bringing 75 new residents or jobs into a community is a good thing for the economy, but it adds some impacts that need to be compensated up front, like where are you going to get the money to hire the extra firefighters or police or garbage trucks to serve those folks. And so that's what the Hard Rock Mining Impact Act does in Montana. It pays those forward before you even get into it. And then we are still, even though what we've done here in Montana has informed global tailings voluntary standards, we're still the only jurisdiction that has it in our regulations on how you build, operate, and maintain tailing storage facilities so that you don't ever see on our watch any of the failures that you've probably seen in the news stories around the globe. So much different regime and paradigm on how we conduct our industry in today's day and age. And it's still a big economic driver. We don't have to choose between, do we have to give up a recreational economy for a mining economy? We're really lucky here in Montana in that we have them both. The last time we did an assessment of our hard rock mining industry, which was in 2023, we had over $7 billion in economic output for the state of Montana, resulting in over 18,000 jobs. And that's both direct, indirect, and induced. Mining is one of those industries that has a big multiplier effect. For every dollar spent in the mining industry, it generates about $2.50 in other parts of the economy. And so we're lucky to have these things in the way they operate. So I just wanted to start with that. And it informs what we mean when, if you want to go to that very last slide, I think that I gave you, it's the nice sun. Keep going one more. That one. This is our mission statement, promoting and protecting responsible mining in Montana. We don't have one you can look up in a book, but if you go back to that first slide where we talked about all of the things that are expected in mines today, working with, going beyond the taxes and employment, working with our local neighbors and stakeholders, engaging in, investing in, and being responsive to the community. Those are the things that we require today. And so when a company comes to us and comes to join our association, we make them come before our board and give a presentation on their background, if they have projects in other jurisdictions, talk to us about what they plan on doing in Montana. And then based on what we think and information we get out of them, we vote whether or not to accept them in. So I guess what I'm saying is everybody that mines is not a member of the Montana Mining Association, because it means that much to us that you got to be doing things right. And I've been running the association now I'm going on my 4th year here. And I don't want to take a whole lot more time away from the guys who were here to talk about it, but both Almonty Industries and Mithril Mining came to our board of directors. They were both accepted in as new members. I know that Almonty's had folks out meeting with neighbors and stakeholders within the area that they're proposing to do some exploration and actually bring back into operation an existing permitted mill that's over there near Glen. And then Mithril has also had a public stakeholder meeting down at the HBRJ in Weiser to answer folks' questions and give them some information. And if you want to go to the next slide, I think shows, I just gave a presentation to the Beaverhead Deer Lodge Working Group the first week in June because they asked about some of the projects that are going on in the BBRD, which, that the Big Hole Watershed is entirely within the Beaverhead Deer Lodge National Forest, which it's the largest national forest in Montana, but whether you knew it or not, the Beaverhead Deer Lodge National Forest is generally accepted as having either the most or second most active mining claims and mineral activity of any national forest in the United States, with the exception of some of the big ones up in Alaska. And so it's got a long history from Basin and Phillipsburg and some of the phosphate deposits. And the Big Hole, because of there's been a lot of historic mining activity in the Big Hole. And really, and not to say that things like the Elkhorn and Coolidge are good, but we have precious few impacts on the watershed when you compare them to the sort of impacts that you see if you get up into the hills around Basin or even Butte around. That's probably your best example of mining legacies. But believe it or not, a lot of it has to do with the geology. We just don't have a lot of that real acid generating sulfide geology in the Big Hole Watershed, because there has been a lot of mining here, and tungsten, unless you've been living under a rock, no pun intended, you've probably heard about critical minerals and this necessary drive for us to start developing our own sources and supplies of those because of geopolitical adversaries that have taken control of those. And Big Hole used to be one of the highest producing tungsten districts in the United States. And that's what's brought companies like Almonty and Mithril, and there's others that haven't come to us yet that we don't know much about yet, but they're just going back in and looking to do some poking around to see if it's possible to bring some of those mines back into operation again. And I think the biggest one is we'll go with Almonty first. I'll introduce Stephen here and let him talk more about it. But all of the mines that are in the Big Hole that used to mine tungsten used to ship their ores for processing at the old mill that was in the Glen area. That there's still some foundations and remnants of that larger old mill that are there, but they built a newer one in the early 2000s, the Apex mill, and it's operated off and on. It does have an active permit from the Department of Environmental Quality, and what it is currently doing is it's just reprocessing tails that were from that old historic tungsten heyday, and so doing some additional processing to separate the garnets and the tungsten that are in those old waste deposits, or doing a little bit of reprocessing and reclamation there, but then also doing some exploration on the deposits that are up above. So I'll bring Stephen Allen up here from Almonty to talk about his project, and then next up we'll bring Taylor Sulik with Mithril Mining. Stephen?
Thanks, Matt.
First off, I want to say thanks for everybody here to allow us to come in and just spend a little bit of time. I was given 3 to 5 minutes, I believe. And just as a disclaimer, I was born and raised in the state of North Dakota.
We're okay.
Congratulations to Montana. Yes, yes, Ken. And you won't have to worry about NDSU anymore. Okay, I went to school in New York, then I found my calling in the United States Army, and I served multiple decades in the Army, and then I just retired in September 2024, and I came on with Almonty December 1st of last year. And so since January, I've been on the move quite a bit, which I'll cover just a little bit. But really, it's bringing me back to Montana, which getting to this point, thank you, Matt, for bringing us into the Montana Mining Association. And on behalf of my boss, Lewis Black, we just got a few slides we'd like to go over and answer any questions you may have. Okay, you have a slide.
This one just shows both of the mines we're going to talk about in context. So you can keep going right now. There we go.
Okay, so we have Almonty Industries, and then underneath that we have Almonty Gentile Montana Corporation, which I'm going to focus in a little bit of detail, but not too much. Okay, next slide, please. All right, just a disclaimer on some of the forward-looking statements that we have. It's available on our website. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, so just a few highlights that I want to cover. Significant to the tungsten demand that is occurring right now, not only in the United States, but with our allies. The company, the Almonty Industry Company, was headquarters out of Toronto, and as it was starting to evolve, we've been looking at this area for quite a while, for multiple years. And part of the setting up to get into the United States was taking a look at, okay, where do we want to look at the headquarters? And then the decision was made late last year, and then early this spring, right around April timeframe, we notified the appropriate authorities here and moved the headquarters to Dillon, Montana. We have a location right now, South Idaho Street, right on the corner. We have right now a grand total of 4 employees. Dirk Nelson back there is our general manager. We have 1 office manager, 1 laborer, and then we just brought on a junior metallurgist intern from Montana Tech that we'll keep on board till December, and then we'll take a look. So we're very, very small right now, just to kind of take a look what the area is, and then we'll talk about the actual mill. So Focus areas from Almonty is taking a look at workforce development, definitely taking a look at youth education coming up, development, look at trades, environmental sciences, general laborers for heavy equipment, plumbers, welders, things like that, to invest in that youth that's grown up in this area. So if they go somewhere else, they want to be able to come back for future, way in the future. The career opportunities right now limited, but taking a look in the future, as we would like, is to be able to expand that. And then we also have, and I've also want to make sure that we look at the youth, but then also looking at the elderly as well, provide support to the local community, which we're taking a look at through Ben and the team. The conservation and restoration partnerships, part of the getting into the MMA was to make sure that we were legit on everything that we do. And just on my background alone is environmental protection agency is huge. Anything you do in the service here, you have to do it right, otherwise you get huge penalties. So that carries over into the mining industries. And looking at not only federal, but the state of Montana, we will go as Montana allows us to go. So we just took a look at the holistic permits and actions that have to happen with everything within water, environmental, livestock, everything right now to lay this out. And this is going to take a little bit of time to go through this to make sure we're actually moving at the pace what Montana allows us. The stewardship there is to minimize our footprint through careful planning. And that's what we're just doing right now, conceptually, not only at the mill, but further on with the Gentong gold bike. And then community and transparency, to just to make sure that we're being as transparent as possible here. Again, coming here, open book right now. And then as we go forward, we'd like to come back as we get going. I wrote down the dates if you'd like to have us here. Okay, so next slide. All right, so the Gentong projects. We're going to break it into two areas. First, the historic mill site, which Dirk Nelson, if you have questions more, he can go into detail on that. It's got a lot of history in it, as Matt had mentioned. And then the mine, which I'll cover briefly. So this is a current aerial view from about 2 days ago. It's off Interstate 15 off the Glen exit on the west side of Interstate 15. The aerial shot. This was up and running back in the 2012, 2015 timeframe, looking at garnet. So I've been producing garnet, but there was other stuff that was coming off that. And then when that kind of tailored off as far as operation, the stuff was put back into the ponds just down in this area. And then the reclamation piece was put in place. And so, but we went in and just did some of the sampling that's in there. We sent off for some testing and we just got the results back. And there's definitely some tungsten in there as well as still some garnet. And so the focus now is, okay, we know it's there. Continue on with the permitting process to take a look at how we can pull that out. And then we've got some work to do on the mill. We're going through it right now for functionality. We have some work to do. And it's going to take a little bit of time to make sure it's one, it's safe. Two, it's going to be able to do not only the garnet, but also taking a look at the tungsten. It's a flotation, but what we don't know is what's inside those tailings as far as if it has to be broken up to be able to further process. So we're working with M&A closely. Let's take a look at some options to help us through this piece. The separate project for the Gentong piece, we're not in there yet. Yes, we are going to take a look at exploration on a different timeline. So mill, we're taking a look at now to be able to look at retooling that mill, make it safe, and then what we have to do to be able to move the tailings through. The separate project for the Gentong is going to take some time to put that plan together based on all of the checks, all the notifications that we have to do. We just started our initial water sampling for the wells up near the mill site. We'll get the initial results back in July, and then in July, we will start the Gentong water sampling and then eventually the monitoring. So we're putting those two pieces in place right now to get ahead before we even do anything. We're trying to turn that mill on. Okay, let's go to the next slide, please. All right, so what we do know, based on the previous exploration and what Matt had mentioned, we know that there is tungsten there. It's just a matter of how to get it. And that's going to take some concepts to put this together. It won't be open pit. We don't do that. It'll be underground. That is going to take some planning to be that. Again, years out. With the permitting actions to go with it. The field work, taking a look at bringing in environmentalists, some type of environmental science, looking ahead here soon, maybe as an intern. looking at bringing another metallurgist probably soon as well, so that we're taking a look at what that's gonna entail moving forward. We're very sensitive to the surrounding areas. The water piece is a huge one, to make sure that the water that's available on that site will be recycled and kept up on there, and we can go into further discussion about that. And then sensitive to any wildlife, the habitats based on what we just heard right now. And then the following to the letter, federal and state of Montana underground mining concepts and lower impact alternatives being evaluated right now. So we've got some work to do on this. Okay, next slide, please. All right, should I pause there and then wait for them to be done, or would you like to open up now?
Yeah, what do you want to do? I want to make sure we get Danica enough time for her talk. So if we permits right now, quick question on,
Just super quick, when was that mill built?
This one that's in the picture?
Yeah.
Dark 2010?
yeah.
2010?
Oh, oh, okay, that's what it is.
This is, I think, the third generation now.
Where's the ore body? How far from the mill?
Oh, it's gonna be about, would we drive?
10 miles.
Yeah, 10 miles.
Is that on the other side of the river, or what side of the river you?
It's
It's all on the same side. Okay.
it's all on the same side. So we're looking at how to get in there. So that's gonna take more planning. With access, things like that.
Is it all on the east side of the Pioneers?
Yeah.
Deposit?
Yeah.
Okay.
Do you have a time frame
For the mill or the mine?
for the?
For the mine, years.
5 years?
Years.
10 years? Okay.
Takes a while.
We will go as fast as the regulatory requirements go and the environment. And that's what we just laid out yesterday strategically, and it's yours. And that's once we have that further clarity, yes, I would love to come back.
All right, thank you. Thanks, Stephen.
Yeah, thanks, Stephen.
Yeah, it's important to engage early, so not only you guys know what's going on, if you have questions or concerns you want to look at in the process of them going out and collecting data and starting their planning process. It's good to have this dialogue develop right now.
And I will say, after a lot of years of this work, but also international development work, having these conversations with the extractive actors this early never happens. This is really rare, and I think the way things should be done. So I appreciate that we're even having this conversation, and the fact that you guys knew to come here to this room shows me that you did your
Okay. Next up, all the Henry's Taylor Sulik with Mithril. Let him talk about his project.
Yeah, good evening, everyone. I'm Taylor Sulik, founder and CEO of Mithril Mining. I just want to echo Stephen's sentiment to both the Big Hole Watershed Committee as well as Matt Vincent from the Montana Mining Association for the opportunity to be here. You can go to the next slide, please. So my background's a bit unique. I was a Coast Guard intelligence officer. I did a counter drug mission now in the Eastern Pacific prior to COVID. Then I transitioned to the private sector. First got involved in mining 2023 when I was studying at the Naval War College. Started this company off as a prospect generating company. So essentially we do online research about historical mines that previously operated. Would go out them on the weekends, stake and claim them, and then look for a purchaser of these. Ended up dealing with a lot of those groups that were looking to purchase mining projects. Most of them were not US based. So from that point, with obviously the importance of critical minerals here, I wanted to build a US owned and operated tungsten exploration company. So that's what we're in the early stages of doing here today. So as you can see right here is an overview of the Calvert Mine site. And just for the next slide, just keep this area in mind when we talk about a little of the work that we're doing at the site. Next slide, please. So right now we'll first start off with the history of the Calvert Mine. So the Calvert Mine was Montana's second largest historical producer, produced from about 1957 to 1963, produced about 200,000 tons of tungsten material that was shipped down to the Glen processing facility to be processed. Multiple time have had the property, have done some exploration work. Most recently, there was an approved exploration program by US Tungsten Corp in the 2014 timeframe, but no real tangible work has been completed since the last major drilling campaign in 1971. So there has been plenty of historical data that we've been able to either acquire or find online about the Calvert Mine, indicating some future potential of the high-grade ore deposit that remains underneath the pit right there. But there also is some historical surface material that I highlighted on the previous slide, which was left historically. It was essentially classified as overburden that didn't meet the cutoff grade of the processing facility, so it was left at the site. And in 2024 into 2025, the Montana Tech, as well as the Montana Bureau of Mines, did an assessment of some of that surface material at the site and found some relatively high grade tungsten that still remained in those surface piles there. So that is some of our initial work right now, is to test the validity of that tungsten in there and what could potentially occur from there. So to that point, we have received both approvals. We've engaged with the Forest Service and Montana DEQ to do a bulk sample, taking approximately 500 tons of that historical surface material from already disturbed areas and truck it off-site to Phillipsburg, Montana, to be processed into a concentrate as part of one of the steps to determine the economical feasibility of that surface material. So we already have the processing facility up in Phillipsburg, as well as trucking and the local contractors engaged to work on this project. And we're hopeful to see how these results turn out, and that will indicate what our future plans are from there. Next slide, please. So again, really just wanted to highlight on how we do business. We're working a lot with local partners and folks. We are sponsoring a graduate student at Montana Tech. He's going to be working with us for 2 years as part of this project, and we'll be writing a thesis on the Calvert Mine prior to his graduation. So we're excited about him getting up and started here on the project. We're working with Anvil Solutions based out of Dillon to help with our permitting aspect. The University of Montana has done some drone flight work for us. I mentioned the Contact Mining facility up in Phillipsburg, Montana, as well as some of the trucking companies up there. So really wanted to keep this local and build out the development of the community and investment here in the community, because it's going to take a group effort and not just ourselves in order to make this project succeed if we do go forward with this. Again, highlighting on community engagement, part of the reason why we're here today is to speak to all the stakeholders, be engaged and transparent about the process and what we're working on. We did present at the HBAR-J in May earlier this year to answer any questions from the community over in Wise River about some of the folks who live closer to the mine area. And we'll be continuing to do stakeholder engagement and outreach and be available through email, over the phone, for anyone who's interested in continuing the conversation. And then lastly, just wanted to highlight, as we continue this project, some potential collaboration ideas with the Big Hole Watershed Committee, whether that's taking a look at Bryant Creek Road, especially if there are trucks going up and down that road there, how we can mitigate potential impacts to that road, sharing of any high-level data that we collect from that area up there. Obviously, there's a pit lake up there, so that's something that we'll be taking a look at and planning for the long term. And then also just any other reason, like the integrating into the drought management plan and working with you guys on how best we can be good partners up there as we continue to do our work this year and into the following year. So with that, again, appreciate the time today. Happy to answer any questions or stick around and talk to anyone after the fact.
Do you guys have any water rights associated with that?
No, so not at that point, not right now. So yeah, that's something we'll be looking into in the future, but right now we're just focused at taking that material off the surface and seeing if there is any viability to it for the long term.
So that Bryant Creek Road has a real big pinch point on it. When you do your work, are there going to be closures on that road, or are you going to schedule the traffic?
Yeah, for this bulk sample, the roads won't be closed for the duration of the day, but we will have folks staged at the bottom and the top of the road with radios. So we'll make sure that if there are any trucks or equipment that will be moving up and down that road, that we make sure that the folks who are transiting are held until those trucks come by, so there won't be any impediments going up to that Calvert route.
When do you expect that work to occur?
Right now, we're scheduled for next week. Yeah, June 22nd through June 24th.
3 days, 6 to 8 loads a day. So there'll be about 20 loads a day.
I have a question for Matt. In mining in Montana, like if you log on a Forest Service ground, you get a percentage, county get a percentage of revenue logging. But in mining, you don't get any percentage of the minerals off their service land for the county.
There's not a federal royalty, but there's a gross proceeds that does get paid. That about half, a little less than half of it goes to the state. The other half of it does go to the county, where it's split up basically into thirds. A third goes to the local government, a third goes into a hard rock mining trust for when the mine is under closure, and the other third goes to the school districts.
Okay, and is mining equipment subject to county property tax?
Business equipment tax and the property tax, yeah.
It's actually the county.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think that number, out of that $7 billion, I think over $400 million was state and local taxes. And I think I'd be remiss in saying, again, back to this legacy. Yeah, there's the Elkhorn, yeah, there's the Berkeley pit, but we have learned from those, and the new legacy that we need people to understand is that the Stillwater mine has been operating for 40 years underneath a wilderness area at the headwaters of the Stillwater River, Blue Ribbon Trout Stream. Their other operation has been going for almost 30 years, and they're mining directly underneath the East Boulder River. The Barrett's talc facility is right on the banks of the Beaverhead River. You got, I can go on and on, but you try to cement factory right on the banks of the Missouri River. We don't do things the way the legacy that people remember and tend to point to, that you can't ignore things like the Berkeley and Elkhorn, but we just don't do it that way anymore, and we're not allowed to do it that way. So,
Thank you.
I know we're way over time. Thank you to the three speakers, Jeff Grab better. But the one other plug that we put in, this is an important group that has lots of partnership projects, whether that's funding, volunteer equipment needs. Think about those lists in the region between Weisenberg and Glen. And there's two more individuals between Taylor and Stephen and the folks that are supporting, including myself and Matt, that want to help try to partner on some of those projects. So if there's things that can be good for that community, each of these projects are already near some adjacent copper removal and some of these other habitat restorations. So if there's things or hurdles that you're needing some support getting over, please get a hold of us and let's see how we can help. All right, awesome.
Well, thank you guys.
thank you.
Thanks for having us down to this. And Matt, please, and thank you all for bringing refreshments and beverages for us today. Really appreciate that. So help yourselves, and then I'll do the uncomfortable thing of breaking up excellent conversations to get back to our speaker. So quick, eat, drink, talk, and then I'll cut you off. Everyone's favorite brain is our water rights brain. Using and managing water, and introduce Danika Holmes here, who's gonna present on new legislation and reporting protocols that fit right into what we do here at Water Committee with our drought management. Thanks very much.
Thank you, Pedro. Yeah, my name is Danika Holmes. I introduced myself earlier as well. I'm the Upper Missouri Water Planner at DNRC. I put together a pretty short PowerPoint because for a couple reasons, I prefer those in general. And we're still kind of getting used to this new reviewing process. That's kind of the only part I have about the communications update is DNRC, along with some other state agencies, are trying to figure out a way to incorporate more higher level agency review in our communications. And that includes things like PowerPoints. But even without that, I probably still would have made a 6-slide presentation. So you're welcome for that. And it's also pretty bare bones because this is a very new process. It was passed, I'm going to be talking about a law and the process that's come from it involving reducing or ceasing your use of water during times of drought. This is the result of legislation that was passed by the 2025 legislature, and it has an effective date from October of last year, so it hasn't even been effective for a full year. I foresee whatever presentations I give about this process next year will look pretty different because we'll have lessons learned. We will have identified some kinks in the process that we don't know about yet. I really like more conversational style presentations. That's me personally. That's where I learn the best. So I love a dialogue where anyone feels it makes sense to have one. working at a state agency for as long as I have, I know that as hard as I try, I am guilty sometimes of being jargony when I don't want to be. So if something I say is unintentionally jargony, maybe Clayton, you can help me by jumping in and catching me there. But I'll do my best. So let's jump in. Thanks, Tana. So internally at DNRC, we have this pesky habit of referring to new processes that affect or new legislation that affect our processes by referring to their bill numbers. So, of course, I'm going to start there. I will probably not refer to House Bill 580 after this, but that is the bill that was introduced and passed by the legislature in 2025 that updated water right abandonment law in our code. According to House Bill 580, that really wouldn't have been established or developed with the speed and, even though it's simple, its thoroughness without Clayton's help. What this law does is expand our abandonment statute codified in 852-404 MCA, Montana Code, and say that the voluntary reduction in diversions of water or non-use of water during times of drought and in accordance with a drought plan does not by itself represent an intent to abandon a water. As a section of 2, right now we've got 2 planners, normally we've got 3, but we're really excited about this because we've been finding, I've been a planner for about 3 years now, and it didn't take long for me to learn about how there is a lot of hesitance from a lot of people, or there was, to participate in drought planning because of the fear and the risk that comes with potentially losing your water right to abandonment. So we really do see and are excited by it, see the potential in this law and are excited by it because we're already seeing that it's incentivizing participation in drought planning and conservation measures at different scales. I want to also, I know I've got a few emphases here, but I want to also highlight that the language was very carefully crafted, I'm guessing Clayton, in the legislation, in the bill, to say that participation in a drought plan and reduction of use accordingly alone can't be used or is not evidence of an intent to abandon. Just because someone is participating in a drought plan and reducing their use accordingly does not mean that their water right can't be considered abandoned for other reasons. So this is not a fail-safe. You can't just, this is not a fail-safe. Just because you're participating doesn't mean you're protected across the board for all of the reasons. Let's move forward to the next slide. Oh, actually, I'm sorry, let's pause. I did include a snippet, a screenshot of page 60, which you all should have from our Montana drought management plan that lays out a pretty important key recommendation in there, and that is also in our 2015 state water plan that highlights local drought planning as a pretty important tool in our drought resiliency toolkit. So this is recognized in this plan and in our water plan. Drought planning is like something pretty crucial for collaborative and effective water management. Okay, now we can advance. So I'll first, again, 6 slides. We're already on number 3. The abandonment law updates. I'm going to go over the criteria first and then what water users need to do. They're going to seem pretty similar. They are, but there are procedural things that need to happen. So the passage of House Bill 580 clarifies that the reduction of use or cessation of use of water isn't by itself representative of an intent to abandon if the point of diversion or place of use of a water right is located within a county that's experiencing D1 drought as designated by the U.S. Drought Monitor. So this is where in Luke's presentation, he had that map that came up showing the most recent recommendation from the U.S. Drought Monitor. And I'm going to point you all to page 13 of the drought plan. That's where it lists the different metrics that are involved and considered by the Montana Drought. I think it's the monitoring subcommittee. I always think of them as just the drought task force, but This is a subcommittee that is convened as part of the governor's Drought and Water Supply Advisory Committee, which comes together once a week, every week of the year, to put together a recommendation for drought categorizations for every part of the state, and they send them to the U.S. Drought Monitor. The U.S. Drought Monitor then considers those recommendations and most of the time adopts all of them. That doesn't happen every time, but it's pretty well respected. It's a subcommittee comprised of representatives from several state agencies, including DNRC, the State Library, the Montana Climate Office, members, and other partners of the Drought and Water Supply Advisory Committee. So I know that was a long one for number one, but because that was really relevant in Luke's presentation, I'm glad that there was an opportunity to expand on it a little bit here. So first, you got to be located in a place that's experiencing D1 or worse drought. The second is that the reduction of use or non-use is compliant with a drought plan that's been submitted to DNRC. And the third is that a report of reduced or ceased water use needs to be filed with us. And I also had, with Luke's help, handed out a copy of that form for everyone as it exists now. I think it's going to have to be updated probably over the next year because the planning section's email isn't on there, which I may or may not be just a little bit of Wi-Fi. So let's move to the next slide. So those are the criteria involved with this law, but in order for water users to comply with the criteria, they need to do these three things. Today, it's like the rules of three. Three is going to come up a lot. It is what it is. So to comply with the requirements here, water users need to confirm that the drought monitor has designated their county as being in D1 drought. They can do that by signing up for notifications from the U.S. Drought Monitor that will alert them when their counties go into or out of different stages of drought. First thing, and I was actually thinking about this, it might be a great idea for members or partners of the watershed committee to maybe find a way to link to that on the website or in the newsletter.
Yeah.
Great. And another thing I wanted to include here is that if any part of your county is experiencing D1 drought, that applies to the rest of the county. So I think that's pretty cool. The second thing that water users need to do to comply is ensure that they're reducing their use in accordance with a compliant drought plan. So I'll go into this more on the next slide, but there has to be a drought plan that exists for the geographic area that user is in. Usually that's a watershed. It can be a county. I have yet to see a drought plan that doesn't really focus on a source watershed somewhere.
Ours is compliant, I'm guessing.
It is very compliant.
Right.
Yes, it's a
Okay.
great example.
So number two, if you live in the Big Hole, check.
Yes. It's really convenient when there's already a drought plan in place. I know this seems maybe redundant. I hope not to this group. I know that there's a lot of familiarity already with drought planning here, but I do think that this is a new process that doesn't exist. Luckily, with the incredible capacity and support that exists here, I foresee a lot of forms coming from the Big Hole that will probably be looking pretty good. I'm looking forward to seeing those. Ensuring that there's a drought plan and users, so this is less so the case here because of the existence of the drought plan in the Big Hole, but I still wanted to include it that we are still putting together a guidance document for people who want to put together a drought plan where one doesn't exist, or memorialize or write down an existing handshake agreement that people might have with their neighbors. Those agreements can still be submitted to us, and you can still participate in the Big Hole drought plan. You can participate in multiple if you want. Our goal is just to encourage effective water management where we're able. Even though we're still putting together these guidance documents and these guidance materials, people can reach out to DNRC, to our planning section. There's the email that I really wish was on this form, but it's not. There's the email, or you can reach out to your regional water planner for assistance. That's me. And so, third thing, gotta file this form. And these are all in statute. This is the law, this is what's going to be required. This form needs to make it to DNRC by December 30th of the same year that reductions took place. The second page of this form includes contacts for the different regional offices that we've got for our Water Resources Division. If you're in Madison County, that's going to go to the Bozeman Regional Office, but most people in here are going to be sending their forms to the Helena Regional Office. I think there's going to also be a way for you to be able to submit them electronically if that's desired, but we also, just as an aside, I am at every January review, Big Hole Drought Management Plan review meeting. So anyone who's sending this form in for any reductions in use and compliance with this Big Hole Drought Management Plan, you don't need to submit a copy of it. I've already got it. Unless you're submitting it for some other plan, we need to see it. Okay, next slide. I know, but hear me out. Okay, so no the drought planners. I opt point to the Big Hole and to the Jefferson. It was recently updated, so these numbers have shifted a little bit, but I do still like to point out some fundamental components I think that need to be part of drought plans in order for them to be effective. I was just having this conversation with Brooks. We've been talking about some drought planning that BLM is interested in looking at, but I'll go into that a little more in a second. I see three requirements or three things that really make up a drought plan that are foundational. I lumped the two of them here in the first bullet, but it really is, I think, three things. So as stated in the statute as well in the updated law, drought plans need to have metrics and criteria that determine when that drought plan is effective. First thing is a trigger. So how do we know that the drought plan is active? The second is a response action. What happens when that trigger is reached? And then the third is a geography, a covered geography. Again, that can really be anything. It can be a county, usually isn't. It's usually a watershed. It could be a creek. It can be probably groundwater. There's nothing that says it doesn't have to be. I haven't seen one yet that's like a cone of depression or something for groundwater uses. But the drought plan has to say where it's relevant, what its jurisdiction is. We do have the state drought management plan, and I was thinking about this on the drive here. Something that we haven't talked about as a planning section, but that I would bet, I don't know, not that much money, but I would bet money that it's going to happen is that we're going to receive forms from people referencing the state drought management plan as the management plan that they're reducing their uses in compliance with. This is not considered a compliant drought plan according to this law. And that's because this drought plan guides the state's direction and what the state could do and lays out recommendations that different state agencies could take on to address drought and increase our drought resilience. It does not have specific metrics or response actions for specific users to take in the instance that there's D1 drought. None of that exists in here. So this is not going to be an eligible plan. I know I went so fast, that was on purpose, but I'm sure I missed a couple things even that I had in these notes, but the last slide is just contact information. So from here, I wanted to open it up to converse. Like I kept it short because I want to encourage any questions. And I'd love to know too, if you foresee any kinks, if there are any loose ends that you identify, something that might be missing here, I'd love to know about them because we want to be prepared however we can.
Danika, thank you for coming into this presentation. I think you did make this point, but I just wanted to reiterate it. I think it's an important part of the negotiation in the legislature, and partly because I'm cognizant of when somebody from the government shows up with a form and says you have to file this. It is an option. It's a voluntary option.
Yes, thank you.
If you are a participant in a drought plan and you wish to have the additional protection from abandonment, if there were what they claim maybe next year abandonment, there's a voluntary way to file and gain access to the protections now.
Yes.
244. You, as members of a drought plan or participating in a drought plan, you can continue on business as usual, doing what you're doing, and not file this form under no penalty.
That's exactly right.
It's a voluntary mechanism that's designed to help provide an additional resource for you to provide protection from abandonment.
Could not have said it better myself. You are not required to submit this. And in the Big Hole, what's special about here too is that you've got the CCAA, which is already listed in abandonment statute. So that doesn't mean that there aren't other things that could happen that might make sense to file this form for. But yes, thank you, Clayton. It's a report, and I call it a form because it's got things to fill out. That's a form to me. It is a report, and that is different than like a water right form that we would see otherwise. It's free. Participation in a drought plan is voluntary as well. So you don't have to participate in a drought plan. We would love it if you did. I think I can say I'm a planner, so we want to see that. But yeah, thank you. That's a very important part of this too.
So I got a comment and a question.
Sure.
I've been involved in watershed communities since I admitted 1995. And this issue of abandonment has come up a number of times, and I consider it to be a somewhat fuzzy, complicated, and confusing topic. And so first thing I did when I got your book is I put to the gloss, and it's not even in the glossary. So that'd be a suggestion. It may take an entire page to explain abandonment.
Yeah.
But I guess my question to you is, if I have a water right and I exercise in full in the months of May and June, and I cease irrigation in August, do I run the risk of an abandonment?
At this point, you do not if you align or if you comply with the criteria that are listed out here. There is now this mechanism that exists that ensures that in alone by itself, your participation in the drought plan, your reduction in use in compliance with this drought plan is not considered an intent to abandon your water
But
right.
it has been my understanding almost the entire time in this process that if I exercise my water right in full at any point during the irrigation season, I can cease during the rest of my irrigation season. I run no risk of it.
Now you don't if you submit this.
I don't think that, Clayton.
Yeah,
I think what my understanding is, and maybe the law has changed. But if I exercise it in full at any day during my irrigation season,
I see.
I can shut it off in
Yeah.
August or September for the rest of the irrigation season.
Yeah, I hear you.
I can prevent an abandonment claim because I have exercised it in full for at least one calendar day during my season.
Honestly, that's how I always saw it too, but we haven't seen enough abandonment claims being played out in court to know how much teeth there is to that argument. That's the only reason why I have really steered away from saying with certainty that would be the case. I'm not a lawyer. I did work in water rights for 7 years before I became a planner, so I learned painfully that you cannot say anything with a guarantee. I will agree with you though, that's how I always saw it.
Yeah, well, I guess this is a good deal, but it also creates as Clayton pointed out, a payment requirement. And I can see that becoming a potential disincentive for participation in drought plans too, because you don't want to deal with paperwork.
Yeah,
So I
maybe.
think we need to make it clear about what exactly abandonment is. And if my understanding is correct there, I think that needs to be stated and explained right up front. That if you've exercised your right for a calendar day, this paperwork is not necessary. It would be an additional layer of protection. But the fact that you've exercised that right protects you from an event.
My argument, based on what I've heard from water attorneys, is perhaps you're free, perhaps you're not. Because the statute reads, if an appropriator ceases to use all or part of an appropriation right, for a period of 10 years. So it is up to the interpretation of the court of what ceasing to use a part of your water right could mean. The challenge is that we just don't have a lot of abandonment case law in the state of Montana. The only place that abandonment has played out to date has been through the adjudication process. And the water court has been making limited interpretations of water rights being abandoned or not. There will come a time in the future, I mean, you don't have to look very far south to the state of Colorado, where you've got, you also have a forfeiture law, or different we don't forfeiture, but where you have aggressive litigants coming after and challenging every one of these words. What does a ceasing to use a part of your water right mean in practice? We don't have any case law, so that's why I would answer your question, perhaps.
Yeah, and the other side of that coin is the part of the water right that I've heard explained in this room for 30 years, because I had 100 CFS water right, but I'm only exercising 60. So I have an exposure to forfeiture of that 40 that is behind meters.
That would assume that part of only refers to one of the elements of your water right, because part of could be determined to apply to a period of use, a duration of use, volume of use, the flow rate. You find an attorney who wants to challenge something and pay them that money.
We do have it, yeah, you're right, the place, and I think the reason we didn't put it in the glossary is because there are some terms in there that are defined in administrative rule or statute. But we didn't want this to just turn into another dictionary for all those terms that kind of exist in this other cloudy realm of our division or of our state work, but it is mentioned on page 60 where I have that screenshot under that second or that first bolded recommendation to offer legal protection for water users who voluntarily conserve water. And I do just want to say, I totally hear you with the paperwork part potentially being a disincentive. I think one sheet of paper front to back, I would take that any day compared to the potential paperwork that could result responding to a claim of abandonment from another person with my water right.
Yeah, the paper piece is give you it was part of the commission meeting this past. One of the concerns from some stakeholders were that this opportunity to be protected from abandonment functionally for the leave water in stream could be a de facto change of use authorization for in-stream flow without going through an actual change. And so one of the additional requirements that was asked to be part of this to ensure compliance, that it wasn't somebody just trying to go through a de facto change without going through a change or a lease, was this piece of paper. And I said, okay, as long as it's as simple as possible. And I worked with the department to try to make this relatively straightforward, including some of the pieces that are just optional, like the volume. By statute, you don't have to list the volume. We want to do that option for folks to list volumes if they would like to, but you just have to list the water rate number and date reduced or cease use.
Oh, you don't even have to quantify.
Nope.
You don't have to
You don't
quantify.
even
I
have
would love it if people quantify because it would help us learn more,
Yeah.
Yep.
but you're not required to.
That's right.
In parallel, sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just gonna say, you said you just have to list the date and the
The dates when uses of water were reduced or ceased, and just confirming that your county was in D1 drought. And if people aren't sure, they can reach out to me. But fortunately,
Yeah, we've always got this.
there's a resource here.
Yeah.
And you guys are all safe because the other one that you can automatically check in this watershed is there's a drought planning out of the department.
Exactly.
I think in other watersheds that's a bit different, but
Yeah.
I will say that this is the place that all of this conversation came from, is the successes that you've done here, trying to provide an extra tool and reduce barriers for other watersheds being able to do what you guys already kind of leadership to do.
A couple of comments. Most ranches have lots of water rights because it's allocated by section. So this form would have to be 3 pages long for somebody to fill out water rights, which is a giant pain in the backside. I'm just pointing that out. It's not common to have one. It's common to have 15 or something. And
That was one of my comments too. Was I see
it's not very functional for that. But I've read through this though, and not that attorneys know it all, but I visited with a water rights attorney when we bought our place. It made me wonder about the unintended consequences. This creates a paper trail that I didn't use all my water rights. If they change the rules in the future, is this going to be used against me in litigation? Because
not if you're doing it during the effective date of this law.
that's if they don't change the rule, right? There's part of me that's reluctant to create a paper trail of what I'm doing or not doing. And you roll into my place when the water's low, I've got to fish more than hay, so all of my water rights are down. But I don't really want to put that for any water. Because nobody can measure it. There's no way to measure what we use or not use. Nobody can monitor that but me.
I think my response to that would be, again, it's totally voluntary. You don't have to do this. I think that establishment of this process really does the exact opposite of that. That this, as long as this law is in effect before this statute, like unless the statute goes away later or is repealed later on, your reductions in use during that time is compliant with state law. And only because there's a paper trail of it.
And the paper trail is what you could use to defend yourself.
Precisely.
On the other side of that.
Yeah.
I'm just looking around the corner in the future. I don't think the conversation at the state level around water are going to become fewer, they're going to become more, and it will surprise me if the rules don't change over time.
We think that because this is a pretty well-established recommendation in 2 state drought plans that resulted from a group of state agencies themselves, there's more weight here, and there's recognized value to processes like this that came directly from the plans that we as a state put together. My job, the responsibility of my section of the planning section is statutorily recognized and codified in our state constitution to put together and organize the state's drought management plan and the state's water plan. This is special for that reason. There's going to be, I actually think that now that something like this is in here as a result of these plans recommending them, I don't know, that's going to be quite the fight to try to repeal a statute like this, especially one that's compared to other water right legislation, pretty simple, pretty straightforward.
Are you saying that in the one other place discussions she's advice? Discussions for water policy. Or Jim knows about some of these that are currently out there reporting. The things that you're expressing are not uncommon or unique. I think that's the state is having to wrestle with in a way that many of the states already have to figure out before you get creating paper trails. Not only in the context of abandonment, but use in all sorts of ways. And so I think those conversations are going to continue to move quickly, probably as the state debates water policy in the future.
I think like a lot of other processes too, it makes sense, and I understand why it might take a few years or a few cycles for there to be trust built into this process.
Yeah.
That's a part of being in this business and working on this side of things. We totally get that.
And offer again that we have a hydro tech all summer that is available, and it's part of our intention with having John on board. This is the direction we're all headed. Once adjudication happens, everyone's going to have to be measuring their water. There might be water masters all over the place. Who knows how that's going to go, but measuring your water and having a better sense of what you're using and what you're saving is going to be part of the future. And so us having the tech, part of that idea is getting folks used to just that idea. And it helps us identify where do folks not have measuring devices where we can come in and put those measuring devices in and make it easier for folks to know how much water they have, so that it makes it also easier to turn it down and calculate what you're conserving. So it's in parallel to this, right? You could ask John to come out in complete total privacy if you want to know what's in your ditch, and then screw your head gate down a little bit and know what you're giving back to the river. We can do that for you. It's completely private. No one will ever see that information. You could then, in parallel, file that form knowing that you know what you just did. So hopefully having John around can facilitate this for folks. That was the purpose. And I hope folks take advantage of him being out and about and available, as much as his family lets him off the ranch and do that for us.
Those of us that have a long ditch, we require a lot of water, and a lot of that water seeps out of the ditch back into groundwater. Generally, when you sell a water right, you sell about acre foot based upon the planned use of the acres that you're irrigating. So that's volume. I'm pretty comfortable through this acre. I'm very comfortable with volume.
Yeah.
That's hard to figure.
Yeah.
And then you might expose yourself because you're put more, theoretically, put more water on the acres that you're growing than dam is recognized by the sea for that particular area. And then they might say, well, you're using more water than your plants require. That the volume part is concerning. So I have a question. So you fill out this form and you can say, if I have a water right, which is has a priority junior to the working rights. And I put that, well, the Fish and Game use that as a lever to make me turn water quicker.
I don't see how.
Okay.
This is, the drought plans are gonna be, any drought plan that comes to us, like we need to be able to see to make sure that it actually has the components that are needed for a drought plan. We're not about to advertise these forms or have these provided and posted on our website. No. I think that the knowing how our databases work and the amount of effort it would take just to parse out and even locate these forms outside of like Discovery or something like that is gargantuan. I can't say what another state agency will or won't do that. This isn't a regulatory process though. This is purely voluntary. And Fish, Wildlife, and Parks, I think that they also being a stakeholder that helped put together these recommendations that are in these plans, I think would be some of the last people to say they don't want to see drought plan participation.
Could the Missouri River Waterkeepers file a closing?
I don't want to speak for them.
If they file a closing, would you have to give me any information?
I don't know, it depends on what that request is.
Okay.
These data, like these reports are included in water right files. That doesn't mean that there's not like a section of our database that just says, I want to see every single form that was filed under this year. Yeah, if they're coming to us and saying, I want to pull all of the water rights, like I just don't even know how that request would be responded to. And I don't want to speculate. But with regard to the other part of your first comment, Jen, I hear you with concerns about putting down a specific volume, flow rate, number of acres retired, whatever on this form. Totally optional, not necessary. You would be just as protected as someone who did put a comprehensive description of what they did. You do not have to put that information.
See, when we filed our water rights, we pooled our water rights. I would assume if I was going to contribute water back to the river, I would start with the most junior, right?
Totally up to you. That's usually how it is. We see that, but because
this whole thing's going to change on this river.
again, because it's a voluntary process, it's not regulatory. No one has to do this.
Yeah.
But if you want to, and again, there's the teeth that the CCAA brings to the table, already named in abandonment statute. This is not a required water right form that that we're not going to be pressuring anyone to fill out if you don't want to. But like Clayton was saying, for our sake as planners that have invested in carrying out DNRC's mission to effectively and responsibly try and manage water for the benefit of the state of Montana, its people, and its landscape, we really do see drought planning as being an integral component to that. And this form just helps that from our side. Also really acknowledging that there's discomfort to any new process. So yeah, totally voluntary. If you'd rather not participate, you do not have to.
Jim, certainly your question about after we gave them our rate has been on at least my mind as we were working on this bill during the last session and going through what we've been through the last couple of years on call. And I would say that in that spirit, one of the ideas that I had that I hope that this can help ameliorate is painting a better picture to the Department of Fish, Wildlife, and Parks about the breadth of participation in the drought plan and what is already being achieved through voluntary reductions and absolving the need to make call or diffusing the desire to make call because of what's already being done voluntarily. And I'm hopeful that this will help show and paint a better picture in that regard. if folks do choose to do the optional piece, I hear, and that was the clinker that we had about requiring any posting or reporting of volume or metrics or flow rates or those sorts of things. But I think some folks might choose to do that, and we could paint a better picture for the department, the fish wildlife departments, of what is already being achieved voluntarily in this basin. And the call actually could be counterproductive.
Sure.
So,
But it's gonna be a long time. The DNRC has to do one hell of a lot of work before you can call it water rights.
yeah.
I mean,
Before we do,
no, you know, it's all like one house, but like on the Big Hole River, you're gonna have to go through all the post 73 rights and you have, I think. And then you got to put in the red book, decide which reaches you, how you're gonna work that. And then you have to get a water master to swear up the hand and pay him enough that he'll go through the process of flipping the water unit from the big hole enough so that they learn that they have to follow the law.
Thankfully, that is your county district court, not the DNRC, who's gonna have to figure that out. Or the water court, me too. We'll keep working on that one. Topic for another day.
But it's, yeah, Montana has a lot of work to do before they
Absolutely.
benefit from the adjudication of the water in the state.
I think that these comments are, again, at this stage, because this is brand new, we have not received a form yet. We're expecting them at the end of the year. These are exactly the types of things that we want to know and that we want to hear, so that as we develop our drought plan guidance for anyone to access, we can consider these concerns in there. We want to make it easy for people. I'm not in water rights anymore. I'm not out there looking for people to drop the hammer down, and I'm in a totally different bureau. That's not something that we're not looking for that. We, at least on my part, this as a not water right form is, I think, going to be powerful for us to just justify those measures and those things that are going to help keep water in these basins longer instead of preventing them from just running out. I think it's going to help bolster restoration funding in the future. I think it's going to help justify having more money available for ditch improvements and operation improvements. I think there's so much potential here. Depending on how it's used, depending on how many people submit it, maybe we'll get none, maybe we'll get 100, maybe we'll get 1,000. I don't know. I don't know that there are that many drought plan participants in the state, but you hear me. We'll see.
Somebody submits this form, then do they get a letter back saying they received your form, or?
Nothing like that. That would require postage. It would require a lot more. They can always call us. And I think that there's usually something that happens when a PowerPoint, a different version, something. We did have our names here. My supervisor, Valerie Kurth, is the section supervisor for the planning. Oh, thank you. Planning section. She's in the Clark Fork and Kootenai Rivers. I'm in the Upper Missouri. Here's my email. You can also email the planning section anytime. But yeah, we want to hear these comments. And even after today, if you think of something, or in a week you consider something that we didn't bring up here, we would love to know those things. Really, this is the time. I think this is the best time to do it. And if the group is interested and willing to hear how this year went, I am happy to come present again next year with those lessons learned looped in, and again, to keep the conversation going so that we can keep improving this process as is needed over time.
How do you handle, say, water right? We have 100,000. Later on in the season, you might only need a third of that. And then of that third, it might be 10%, there might be 15 or 20% of that to returns. How do you figure that in on this form?
Nope.
Okay.
Not unless you want us to. You can put all of that information or none of it on the form if you want. All we need on here is the dates where you were reducing your use and the water right numbers that you did that. No other information. It's just a report to let us know, yes, we reduced or stopped using our water during this time. And here's the drought plan that encouraged us to do this. Yeah, that's it.
I've got a question. If you reduce your water right, do you reduce the amount of water you're getting down your ditch on August 15th and report that, or do you report how much you're able to get down your ditch August 15th?
You don't have,
Compared to your water, right? If you got 200 CFS to go to one pasture, but you can't get 200 CFS down the river without getting a cap in the river. Which number do you use?
it's up to you. Again, no need to even put a volume or a flow rate down. But if you're doing that, if you're making that reduction because you're compelled to do so by this drought management plan, then that's what this form is for. If you're just doing that because, if you're making changes to your operation because that's how you operate, regardless of whether or not there's a drought plan in existence, that's different. That's just using your water right. If you are doing something that is compelled by the plan, we just need the water right number and the dates when it happened. If you want to give us that information, that this is how you operated your ditch in the meantime, and this is what that reduction looked like, we welcome it. We would love to know that. We're not going to use it in any regulatory sense. That's not what it's about. These guys might use it in their own way to try to paint a picture of the type of work being done here to support or nurture future funding. It's totally up to you. And people can put down the number of acres that they retired. They can put percentage. Yeah, it really varies. This is for statewide deployment. And so we made it as user friendly as possible, because what you guys are doing down here is a hell of a lot different than what a drought plan might look like in the Mussel Shell or in Cut Bank. So varies.
To answer your question, I think, so reduction was created by lack of physically available water, and in that situation, you only get 100 CFS down the ditch, and that delta of 100 that you lost because you can't get the water down the ditch. To me, that's not a voluntary reduction that you're choosing to make. That's a physical availability problem that you don't have that water physically available. But what this is trying to capture is the voluntary production component.
But if I have a 310 permit, which I do have, get in the river to get the water, you would have the right to do it, but I don't think. When I get in the river.
Right. If you have a 310 permit, you're choosing not to do that. As to me, you're making a voluntary decision to reduce the volume of water that you are legally entitled to.
Yep. So in that case, the presence of the 310 permit shows that there was a voluntary action taken that is a conservation. But in the absence of that, you couldn't really show that. I'd say we struggled with that too, right? When we were just trying to.
I don't think you're going to have to prove that and show your 310 permit.
You're not going to have to show it.
But I would just say that the rule.
Yeah.
What it's not just written is you're making a voluntary choice to reduce that's compelled by a metric or criterion in the address.
There's been times if we want to fill our water rights, we could plug the whole damn river off.
Yes.
And we don't want to.
That's a voluntary reduction.
Yes.
We don't want to. Trying to mess up our neighbor.
Don't point at me.
To be honest with you, our nearest downstream neighbor, that's a stream. I'm fishing for some.
That's what counts is you're making it voluntary to use water that you would otherwise be legally entitled to.
Okay.
Thank you for the interest in the comments. Yeah.
Any other further questions for Dan? Thank you for explaining this. This is helpful. So I hope you'll use it. Talk to us.
Yeah. Yes.
All right. We do not meet in July because everyone's just vacationing and on the river, just floating, doing nothing else of any importance. So we will reconvene in August. Look forward to seeing y'all there. There will be lots of communications, emails, things happening with the watershed committee. So stay in touch virtually. And when you get a chance, Kim will start poking around and showing up at places, make her feel welcome. She is great. She's going to be a great asset to the organization. We're stoked to have her. Marika, welcome. She's going to have a great summer. And the rest of you drive safe. We'll see you next time. Thank you.
well, the artist piece that you're gonna say, you never aware of the other. I don't know, I keep sitting here, I'm thinking about one day.